It is I, Glacian. And I've been running the calculations. Systems are overlapping. People are aligning in ways that don't make sense. Rebecca, she smiles more lately, but it's not from me. And Yawgmoth, he's always nearby, watching, assisting, smiling. Could be this fever. Could be design. Everything's shifting. I'm trying to map it and track it. The divergence between what is and what should be. The infection is spreading, and I don't know who I am or who to warn. And yet, there is clarity in structure, in systems that work. Like Gamer's Dreamland. It's a clean loop. You get your singles, cards that matter. And when you use the link in the notes, you get 10% off. No code, just precision. And every time you do, it supports the podcast. And the podcast supports me. It's an elegant exchange. Predictable. Controlled. If only all systems worked as well. It's Gamer's Dreamland. Your online LGS. Chapter 14. Yawgmoth and Rebecca walked through the half-completed temple. Rebecca pointed out overhead to her newest innovation, a network of power stones that hovered throughout the structure. During the day, they were dark, absorbing the light of the sun. At night, they beamed brightly, chasing away ghosts. We have no need of moonlight or starlight anymore. The temple will be our light. It will cast a gentle glow all over the streets, even the dark alleys. Rebecca paused. Her lovely figure lingered sadly in gemstone reflection all around. With more light, perhaps your engagements will not so often turn deadly. In the Power Stones, Yawgmoth's image was a shadow that loomed over Rebecca. We kill only in self-defense when an untouchable tries to kill us. I know, Rebecca said. You're fighting an undeclared war, and every war has its casualties. I just want to be sure you aren't one of the casualties. He lifted an eyebrow. If you're worried about your husband's health, he's mostly in the hands of his goblins and machines now. Were I to die, no, it's not Glacian. Well, of course I'm worried about him, his paranoid delusions, his army of goblin helpers, his split brain. He's deteriorated so much since our return, only a few goblins and I can understand him anymore. Of course I'm worried. She walked, again wrenching her hands in uncertainty. Reaching the western facade, she gazed beyond canyons of crystal. The world dropped away 1,500 feet to the vast desert. Only the occasional fleck of an air caravel shone in the huge expanse. But I'm just as worried about you. Yawgmoth strode up beside her. About me? Rebecca shook her head, abstracted. With Glacian lost in delusion, you're the only one who shares my beliefs about destiny. She took a trembling breath. Here we are on the threshold to a future without want, without disease, without war. We're poised to step free of the weighty world, but it claws at us. Want and disease and war reach out of the black heart of the world to drag us down. Yawgmoth shrugged. Struggle and torment created Halcyon, not art and beauty, as you suppose. It's the way creatures change and adapt. Only in the face of death do living things strive to transcend. War, plague, famine, these are the birth pangs of new empires. Of course you're fearful. You're midwifing a new people into being. Rebecca leaned against him, drawing the warm scent of him into her lungs. I told you, you're the only one I can talk to anymore. Glacian was miserable. His skin would slough off at touch. His fingernails split, peeled away, his hair fell out in clumps. Under its own weight, his mind had split in two. Holes filled his memory. What he could remember were bitter arguments and long loneliness among machines and goblins. Rebecca hadn't visited him all day. Every time he upbraided her for her absences, she claimed she had visited, that he had only forgotten. She refused to relay his instructions to the mana rig, refused to monitor the works at the artifice colleges in the other city-states, and even criticized him for making war on the man who's trying to save your life. He was less understanding than a goblin. "Not enough breath! Adjust the bellows! Adjust the bellows!" is what had Glacian meant to say, though the feeding shunt in his throat garbled the words. The shunt and his own rebel lips and tongue. Yawgmoth was mixing an opiate with his serum, Glacian was sure. Perhaps Rebecca even knew, perhaps she thought it was for pain. Glacian could tolerate pain. He couldn't tolerate this muzziness. "Not enough breath!" These goblins understood even grunts and wheezes. It was their native tongue. The vile beasts pattered among power stone arrays and fitted ratchets to the bellows mechanisms. For a moment, the breath machine stopped working entirely. One goblin scratched his head, the other delivered a slap to him. An argument ensued. All the while, Glacian's vision narrowed to a numb cave. He couldn't even slur out instructions now, his lungs empty. One hand weakly pounded the handle of his wheeled chair. The goblins argued a moment more before they heard the angry click of the man's splitting fingernails. They redoubled their efforts. The little dunces had nearly killed him 8 times, that he could remember. Still, it would be less galling to be killed by their ineptitude than by Yawgmoth's malice. All went black. When next Glacian awoke, a woman stood in the chamber before him. It seemed at first to be Rebecca, young and strong and slender, with eyes that gleamed like crystals. Limned in light from the corridor, her face was lost in shadow. This wasn't Rebecca. She always wore work coveralls, her lovely features powdered with dust. She would not wear these tight black leggings with snake motifs coiling around them, this embroidered vest with its inlays of ivory, this silken neck scarf, and the gleaming beads braided into her hair. It was hard to tell in the slanting light, but her skin seemed polished ebony. The woman spoke, her voice deep and utterly self-assured. "Ah, there you are, Glacian, genius of Halcyon." Already she had his attention. When she shooed the goblins from the room and shut the door behind her, attention became terror.
Who are you? What are you doing here?"
He gabbled nonsensically. The woman's eyes were sad. "I knew you were convalescing. I did not realize how convalescent you had become."
"Who are you?"
Approaching the wheeled chair, the woman drew up a stool and sat. "I heard of your theory about power stones. I heard that you proved the existence of artificial planes within each charged power stone. I wanted to meet the mortal man brilliant enough to prove the existence of the multiverse by demonstrating its mathematical necessity." The woman idly sorted among the charred sketches for proofs lying on the table. "Exactly. Yes, you've glimpsed in mortal symbology immortal truths."
"Who are you?"
As though at last understanding, she looked him squarely in the eye and said, "I'm Die-Fed. I was once like you, very like you, except for this disease. I was once human and brilliant and misunderstood by all those around me. Now I am no longer. Now I am a planeswalker." The word meant nothing to Glacian. Die-Fed went on. "Dominaira is one of a millions of worlds. Demonstrated the existence of artificial planes, but there are many genuine planes too. They're closed to mortals, to such as I, to planeswalkers. The multiverse is wide open." A breath from the bellows shuddered into Glacian. Blinking solemnly, Die-Fed said, "I'd hoped to take you on a tour of the planes. I once was Thran. I've been waiting for the first of my people to discover these things, but the journey is perilous, even a healthy mortal. I couldn't take you in this shape. Any other diseases I could heal. You've seen what arcane energies do to Power Stone dices." Glacian's eyes darkened and his lips compressed a grim line. "You don't believe me. You think I'm trying to fool you." "It is understandable," the woman said gently. "Perhaps this will convince you." Die-Fed disappeared from beside him, reappeared across the room. In her hand, she held an exotic bloom, its pink petals as vast as a man's hand and edged in brown. She approached, laying the flower gently on his chest. This is a Pyrulean orchid, a species found nowhere on Dominaria. I stepped from this world into another, plucked the flower, and stepped back. She studied his eyes and smiled sadly. Still not convinced. Dyfed rolled up the sleeves of her jacket. She clenched her hands together and jabbed them forward into the air. Dragging her hands apart, she tore a hole in reality. A vision greeted Glacian's eyes. A world of darting angels and floating clouds. Amid continents of mist hovered impossible cities of gold. They gleamed in otherworldly splendor in the space between her hands. Such places as these lie beyond the bounds of Dominaria, Dyfed said. Such places as these I will show you when you're whole enough to travel. For a moment, only that swimming image shone in the dark room. Then light spilled from the opening door. Dyfed startled back. The tear in reality closed again. In the gold light of the hall stood another figure. Tall, muscular, commanding. "The goblins told me you had a visitor, Glacian," said Yawgmoth ominously. "But what sort of creature is this?" Dyfed stiffened. There seemed almost a blush in her dark skin. "My name is Dyfed." "I know," Yawgmoth said. "I heard everything. I heard your claims." Glacian gave a garbled growl. "You bastard!" "You listened at the door?" Dyfed asked, incredulous. Yawgmoth shook his head levelly. "No. We have monitoring devices here. We listen to make sure the machines function. We guard Glacian with all manner of provisions."
They listen to keep me captive.
Glacian slurred unintelligibly.
Beware him.
"I heard all of your claims," Yawgmoth challenged. "They aren't claims," Dyfed said. "They're the truth." Yawgmoth stepped into the room and rolled his own sleeve back. The fabric came away from a long, brutal gash in his forearm, oozing blood. "I hadn't time yet to see one of the healers about this, a wound from the street war. You are who you say. Heal this." Dyfed stared down at the suppurating sore. An untouchable had doubtless intended to slice open the man's neck. His forearm received the stroke instead. At the edges, skin was flayed back to reveal muscle under a thin speckling of pus. In one spot, severed tissues showed a pink sliver of bone. "You've been prodding at this?" Dyfed said, taking the man's arm into her hands. Her fingers were gentle and graceful around the terrible wound. "You've been probing to see your own bones, blood vessels? I wouldn't be surprised if you had a stack of sketches back in your laboratory." Yawgmoth only blinked. Not simply an injury, but also an opportunity to learn. Dyfed's eyes met his. "I have heard of you as well. The man who believes the root of all illness is physical, not spiritual. That the body is a great machine that can be charted and manipulated, repaired, and improved. You're right, of course." She placed her hand directly atop the wound, and it was whole. Yawgmoth looked with amazement at his healed arm.
Don't trust him.
Glacian hissed hopelessly. Yawgmoth reached down and plucked the exotic orchid from his chest. "Is this truly from another world?" "Yes." He drew a deep breath from the flower. "I seem to remember encountering just this sort of flower on the coastal islands of Jamura." Her hands released his healed arm. "It comes from the plain of Pyrulia." "Pulling a flower from your sleeve, mere sleight of hand?" "But the wound I just healed?" Dyfed asked indignantly. "There are 20-some healers at the infirmary who could have done as well." Yawgmoth took another lungful of the flower's fragments. "It means that only you are a healer, not a what's the word? Planeswalker."
Don't you see?
Glacian protested hopelessly.
He's manipulating you.
A fiery light filled Dyfed's eyes. "What if we were to step back into Pyrulia and pluck another?" She lunged toward Yawgmoth and snatched up his hand. The two disappeared. No sooner had they vanished than the door barked open. Rebecca emerged. Dust sifted down from her hair and coveralls as she looked about the room. "The goblin said a witch woman was here. Where is she?"
I'm all right.
Yawgmoth came to confront her, they said. She stalked among the breathing apparatuses. "Where are they? Where did she take them?"
Somewhere else.
Rebecca staggered to a halt and fixed Glacian with a desperate look. "Damn it!
Where did she take him? Pyrulia!
There was a moment as they slid between worlds, an excruciating moment. Dyfed had laid hold of the very arm she had cured. Arm and body were dragged right out of reality. The space between was a killing place filled with ravening energies and empty frost. Yawgmoth sensed a thin envelope of protection about him, as gossamer and fragile as film of water. Without that protection, his flesh would have been ripped from his skeleton. Even with it, the passage was agony. Suddenly, they were on the other side. Raving blackness gave way to omnipresent green. This is Pyrulia, Dyfed said, a smile playing about her lips. She gestured outward. Yawgmoth looked out from the ridge where they stood. In every direction, a vast rainforest spread. Millennial trees trailed nets of vine and moss hundreds of feet downward to wet undergrowth. Bright birds darted among broad leaves. Strange orchids spread in sunny patches of the forest floor. It is a different world, Yawgmoth breathed in wonder. It was not exotic flora or fauna that convinced him. It was the spread of the forest itself, literally in every direction. North, south, east, and west, the landscape curved up and away into walls. They, in turn, joined to form a ceiling of sky. This was not merely a bowl of land, but the inside of an enormous sphere. Despite vast blue distances, the sky still showed the outline of trees, a living tapestry hanging overhead. The sun beamed, bright and eternal, in the center of the spherical world. This is Pyrulia, Dyfed said, one of the countless habitable worlds of the multiverse. Yawgmoth was shaking his head. How does the sun... What keeps the plants from pulling loose of... He staggered, kneeling to keep from falling over. Dyfed seemed pleased. The physical laws governing every plane are different. What seems odd to a Dominarian would be natural to a Pyrulian and vice versa. Looking up dizzily, Yawgmoth said, There are Pyrulians? There are intelligent creatures from this world? Yes, Dyfed said. Yes, of course. At last, Yawgmoth slumped onto his stomach, groaning. It's all right, Dyfed assured, setting a hand on his back. This is a normal human response to planeswalking. Clutching his stomach and curling into a ball, Yawgmoth said, I am not a normal human.